So let's talk about what's new on the software side of things. So obviously we're looking at the T-Mobile version again. And let's start off really with just the lock screen. So at the lock screen, obviously we have these buttons down here. And what we can do is drag them into the center to launch the application. So like if I come back here, I can quickly launch camera, for example, just by quickly dragging into the ring. And that's a really nice way of just, reducing some of the friction to get into the most frequented applications. And you can change these, manually if you like, to basically whatever you want. And by default, they're sort of the same thing, except I believe they have Mail instead of Gmail. So the other component of the lock screen is that you have sort of a custom background. So in this example, I'm using weather. So I get sort of an animation when I turn on the phone and the weather report. There are other ones as well. If you go into personalize, so if you come over here into personalize, we can change all the things pertaining to the lock screen just through lock screen. So for example, right here, there are selections. There are things like, of course, just a wallpaper, photo album, friend stream, weather, stocks, more clocks if you really want, in addition to the digital clock at the top, an actual analog clock. But if I come back here to weather, and I tap settings, or we do that, you can just change any of these by tapping on them, and then you get a list of all your applications that you can, put them in there. Like if I want to run Benchmark Pi every time that I launch it instead of messages, that's fine. So I think that's an interesting new concept. So something that I see everybody do as soon as they actually pick up the phone is do this ring animation. So obviously the new home screen thing is sort of continuous. And this reminds me very much of Compiz. If you're familiar with Ubuntu and Compiz Fusion, this is essentially the cube switcher, but just, like HTC saw it and decided they wanted to add it to Sense. And then another small thing is that you can now rearrange all these home screens. So if you zoom out, long press, you can reorder these. So if I want this one over here, done. This one over here, just long tap, move over, done. So that's another small thing. Kind of a big thing that everybody does in custom ROMs that they're finally implementing is quick settings. So and it doesn't in this implementation actually take up your notification area. So up at the top you have a list of the applications we've recently launched, and if I add more of them, you can drag back and forth. And if you come down to quick settings, you can do things like toggle Wi-Fi, the hotspot, mobile network, Bluetooth, GPS, and then quickly dive into a task manager. So I mean, it would be nice to see, the option, for example, change screen brightness or like airplane mode here. But obviously those might be things that are going to come with HTC Dev, etc. But if you go into, for example, their task manager, it's actually pretty nice. You get a list of the applications that are open, how much memory they're using, and you can close them, just from here, pretty easily. So I mean, that's just sort of a small thing. If you already have a task manager, it doesn't really matter. The huge clock widget, that's got some changes. There's a nice weather thing that pops up now. You can dive further inside and sort of get like a view with additional information about now. I think the hourly view is kind of cool. You can get a graph of temperature. So you can see it's going to be like 107 tomorrow. Tap on 5-day. It's sort of self-explanatory, but it's just a small thing that's gotten an enhancement compared to where things were with the HTC Sense 2.0. Next is the launcher. So on the launcher now you have these three things at the bottom. Of course, favorites. Frequency. So based on the frequency of when you tap on things here, they'll be populated and sorted by the frequency and downloaded. So just three different views. And of course you can sort them different ways, by date, alphabetical, and date the other way. So those are pretty self-explanatory. Next thing up is that HTC has sort of made their own swipe keyboard. So if you bring up the keyboard, of course this is HTC's default IME keyboard, which for a while everybody was a huge fan of. Now I think the gingerbread keyboard is a little bit better. At least that's become my personal favorite. But if you want to use the HTC keyboard, which is, you know, gotten its own change, you can now basically swipe. So it literally just works like swipe. ANDTECH. Of course, it doesn't really know an on-tech, but of course you can still, touch type as well, and that works. But yeah, they call it trace. If you come in here in settings, input in keyboards, input language and keyboard, touch input, you can see that they call it trace keyboard. But yeah, it works effectively just like swipe.